I will introduce our speakers. Mr. Francis Giles Puno, President, Chief Operating Officer of First Gen and First Philippine Holdings Corporation. Please come on stage, sir. Thank you so much. Next, Mr. Raymond Rufino, Chief Executive Officer, NEO. And thanks to him, we have this beautiful venue. I love it. Really goes with our theme and our advocacy. And last but not the least, Ms. Marla Guerrero Alvarez, Vice President and Head, Sustainability Office, Compliance Group of BDO Unibank. Thank you so much. First, a brief introduction about each one so we can appreciate the expertise that we have on our stage. So I'd like to share that not only is Giles the President and Chief Operating Officer of First Gen Corporation, which is the Philippines' third largest independent power producer and long-time developer of natural gas-fired plants, he's also the President of First Philippine Holdings Corporation, one of the largest industrial conglomerates in the Philippines, focused on power, real estate, construction services, and manufacturing. And he's also the Vice Chairman and CEO of Synergy Development Corporation, geothermal subsidiary of First Gen. So next, Mr. Raymond Rufino, CEO of Rio, the largest developer of green net zero office buildings in Southeast Asia. So they're known for 7 green office buildings here in BGC, which have all reached net zero carbon emissions with verification through both the IFC's EDGE Zero Carbon Certification and the Philippine Green Building Council's Advancing Net Zero Philippines Program. Wonderful. And finally, Ms. Marla, she's the Vice President and Sustainability Officer, as well as the head of the BDO Sustainability Office, wherein she drives the execution of the BDO Sustainability Framework and Strategies, which is what defines the bank's strategies towards its sustainable goals. She also produces the annual BDO Sustainability Report. So we have the captains of the industry here in our midst. So what I would like, like I mentioned earlier, what I would like to glean from this discussion is what each sector is doing to be able to reach their low carbon ambitions, not just theirs, but the country in general. So my first question will be anchored on the proposed LCE bills we spoke about in panel 1. So it's a law that will require the industry to set decarbonization targets using an emissions trading system. So first, I'd like to direct it to Giles. So First Gen has plans to develop an additional 2,000 megawatts of natural gas-fired power plants until 2030. But under the Philippine Energy Plan, natural gas is referred to as a transition fuel, so it's necessary. But, however, there was a study published in October by Singapore-based research firm Asian Research Engagement, ARE, which revealed that LNG produces significantly more emissions than was thought. So how is First Gen planning to reduce its investment risk, given that there's this proposed low carbon economy investment bill in place? Sit, please.
Okay. Keep it secret.
Thank you for the question, Hannah. Actually, first of all, on the low carbon bill, it's very interesting because until I was invited here, I didn't know there was a low carbon bill. So for me, I welcome it in the sense that when you look at our business initiatives, it's really in the forefront of trying to reduce the carbon emissions for not free. In fact, when you look at our mission, which we recrafted in Question Online, this in the when the first one of these groups, we recrafted a mission, and this is how we recrafted it, is to forge collaborative pathways towards a decarbonized and regenerative. Now, decarbonization was in the forefront of that. Sustainability is in the forefront of that. In fact, I like the fact that when you look at the narrative across all business groups, sustainability is part of the story. Whereas before, it was less part of the story. I think in that sense, we're a bit of an early entrant in the sense that in 2016, just right after the Paris Agreement, we decided that we will not invest in any coal-fired plants. Having said that, when you look at the Philippine energy system, if you look at the little bit of history, since 1995, we were roughly about 5 to 7% coal, okay, to where we are today, which is 63% coal. And so we've gone to a situation where from 5% to 63%, and we're trying to get back to zero. So that's going to be very challenging for a country like the Philippines, who is a growing economy and needs more power, right? So in our case, our approach is holistic, in the sense that we will grow our cash to the extent it's feasible. But having said that, when you look at our CapEx program, in the last year or so, we invested $2 billion. And where did we invest the $2 billion? 400 million dollars of that is in our LNG regasification as well. The reason why we did that is Malampaya is running out, and if we didn't do that, then the yellow and red alerts that we experienced over the summer will be even worse. So that was we averted a crisis during the summer. Second, we invested in the privatization of Kasiknan, which is a $526 million investment, to increase our hydro portfolio. That's part of it. And then third, our biggest investment was in geothermal. Half of which, $500 million of that was in the drilling operations of geothermal. The complications of geothermal is that it's not just dependent on sun or wind, it's dependent on steam on the ground. So every so often, we have to drill to extract more steam from the ground and be able to provide the fuel for power plants. But on top of that, $500 million of that is in the development of new geothermal capacity. And the biggest advantage of geothermal is the fact that it's 24/7 based. And so when you look at it, we're putting our money where our mouth is, which is, okay, most of our investment is still biased towards renewable energy. But to the extent we need to address energy security and balance, then that's where the gas platform comes.
Thank you so much, Giles, for giving us a breakdown of what energy sector is doing. Let's go to the building infrastructure sector. So, Raymond, your group has built a large data center in Laguna Tech Park. Although it promises sustainable use of energy efficiency and water efficiency, we know that data centers are still mainly powered by fossil fuel-based energy. So, although I know it's not under NEO, but it could still be part of the indirect emissions and still under your group. So, how is NEO planning to reduce its investment risk given that this is proposed law?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for that. So our family has a partnership with Digital Edge. We built our first 10 megawatt data center in Laguna Techno Park last year. And when we started this partnership to start building data centers, that was the biggest consideration. These are very, very energy intensive types of real estate. Probably the most energy intensive type of real estate you can build other than maybe manufacturing, right? So we said if we're going to start this, given our family's long commitment and very, very strong values in sustainability, in ESG, in decarbonization, we said it's very, very important we make sure that this first data center sets the tone for what we hope will be the aspiration of our young data center industry, which is we need to have these data centers, but they need to be best in class in efficiency. We really need to work very hard to make sure that these data centers are built and designed as efficiently as possible. That's the first thing. Efficiency is key. And we're very proud that this latest data center we built is one of the most energy efficient in Asia. Not just the Philippines, but in Asia. The second challenge, though, is our partners actually have very ambitious goals for decarbonization and achieving net zero. The reality today is as hard as First Gen and GALs and a lot of our renewable energy producers are working very hard, as fast as that pace is, the reality is the amount of renewable energy available today is not enough. So, for example, for us, we are a data center, we're 10 megawatts. We want to actually purchase renewable energy. It's not available. So the desire is there, but we actually have to wait until the renewable energy producers can actually finish their power plants and their supply for us to be able to decarbonize our power sourcing. So I think there's a very, very strong pent-up demand for renewable energy. There is unfortunately a lag in supply. And I think one of the challenges for a data center, and I think we touched on this before, was you need 24/7 power. So the seasonality of solar, of hydro, of wind is a challenge because this power is constant, 24 hours a day you need to have that power. So the mix is critical. So I think it's great that we have geothermal sources. I think geothermal energy as a base load solution to provide green energy is really critical, especially for not only office buildings, but especially data centers.
Thank you so much, Raymond. It's good that you pointed it out, but although you want to have more renewable energy sister source, it's just not any available. I think it's something that not many people really realize. So let's go now to the banking industry. So as Marla, as the founder of Power Plant Assets, what are your thoughts on the bill and how it impacts Ito's sustainable finance investment?
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. So number one, yes, we are a funder of fossil. What was the term you used? What I
Power plants.
Power plants. Okay, power plants. So that applies to both fossil fuels and renewable energy. So thank you also for bringing to our attention the low carbon economy bill. We looked at it and we do welcome it because it really aligns with our sustainable finance framework. And this framework was recently expanded from 10 categories for green and blue and social financing to now 29 eligible categories. For green financing, for blue financing, which is really related to water and the oceans, the social financing and gender financing. So for us, this aligns and supports our sustainable finance framework. And we have had a sustainable finance program financing renewable energy plants, all kinds, from geothermal to hydro to large-scale onshore wind to wind, what else? Biogas. So again, this is also an incentive for us to even fund more, which is really our goal. Now, in terms of other aspects of the bill, we also find it very much aligned to our environmental and social risk management system. As Angeline said earlier, when it comes to banking and finance, we really look at sustainability and ESG as long-term risk management. So we look at the environmental and social risk, and that is already integrated in our environmental and social risk management system. We look at not just credit risk, but E&S risk. And when we see that there are certain areas there which provides for decarbonization of sectors, various sectors, then that aligns right away with our sectoral approach. So for example, in 2022, we released our energy transition finance statement, which is our commitment to lower our exposure to coal capacity by 50% by 2033 or no more than 2% of our lending portfolio by 2033. So that is aligned with the decarbonization pathway for the energy sector, at least for coal specifically. And we've also looked at other sectors where we have high E&S risk in our portfolio. This would be transportation, construction, mining, and quarrying. But in single digits and even less than 1% actually exposure. But our goal is to really identify and communicate publicly our policies for each of these sectors. So having a decarbonization pathway for those sectors is good for us as guidance as we evolve our risk management.
Very nice. So speaking of funding for renewable projects, we'd like to ask Giles about any financial challenges that you face as a great company, especially since first gen is investing around 29.3 trillion pesos to develop utilize geothermal plants that we mentioned earlier. And not only that, we're also investing on green battery storage systems by the end of this year, which is, I believe this can be more expensive than it does the plan. So what are the financial challenges you face in sugar plant?
Since we're actually a very active borrower, then related sa on the video, but having said that, we are, I think, a very good position in the sense that, first of all, I used to live overseas. I came here 27 years ago. Okay. 27 years ago, the banking market had limited capacity. Extremely limited capacity. When we started developing the gas plants, we raised $900 million, of which the total capacity available for Philippine banks was 100 million cards. That's syndicated. Really, almost 8 banks. If I ask BDO tomorrow that I need $100 million, they can provide that money on their own.
Yeah.
And so many of these institutions, they have the capacity, which I'm pleased to say is very helpful to developers like ourselves in trying to promote particularly green projects and cleaner projects. So more recently, when we acquired, for example, the Kasektan project at $500 million, half of that came from BDO, the other half came from one of their competitors. But having said that, it was fully subscribed to banks, and it didn't have the necessity to hold to 11 or 12 banks fulfill the requirements of what we did. And that's driven by the fact that it was attractive to them because it was a renewable energy project.
Okay, thank you. So still on the costs of the clean energy shift, I'll turn to Raymond. NEO's real estate portfolio in the Philippines achieved net zero in 2021. You secured IFC's Edge Zero Carbon certification with 100% energy savings, achieved renewables or carbon offsets, and so forth. The general belief is that cost is one of the biggest barriers in the uptake of having a green building. So how are you able to navigate the costs required becoming certified?
Sure, thanks, Hannah. So one of my other hats is I'm also chairman of the Philippine Green Building Council, and this is one of the biggest misconceptions we're trying to work out today, which is this concept that green buildings are much more expensive to design, build, and operate than regular buildings. That may have been the case 15, 20 years ago, where the market was still at the stage where if you wanted to import certain materials, if you wanted to employ consultants, a lot of them didn't have the expertise or didn't have the experience to be able to execute these projects. But what we found over the past couple of years by the maturity of the industry is that a 3-star Verde, which is our local green building rating tool, building today costs zero premium over a typical building. We've confirmed this with contractors. All they say is the owner, the developer just needs to tell the entire team that we want to achieve a 3-star Verde project, and we can design and build it at zero cost premium. Everyone gets shocked because people think that it's so much more expensive. The reality, it is not. You just need to work with the right contractors, the right consultants, strengthen your team, and you can do this at no cost. Of course, if you want to go for 4 stars, 5 stars, and be best in class in environmental performance, that will require additional investment. But to bring up your new project to a decent level of green, it doesn't cost that much more money. So I think, for a lot of the owners and developers today, that's one of the things that we're trying to talk to them about and say, look, if you want to go green and cost is the issue, you should remove that from your decision-making list of challenges because it's no longer an issue. 3 stars is fine, 2 stars is fine. You don't need to be a 4-star, 5-star building. You can just go for that regular level. So the cost issue is much less of a problem today than it was before. Admittedly, many years ago there was that cost issue, but today it really is much more economical to go green, and I really hope that many more members of our real estate development community do it. Not just for office buildings, but for residential buildings, or shopping malls, or hotels. our hospitals, our institutions, there's still a lot of room for us to do more in reading our buildings.
Thanks for enlightening us with that one. Because again, it's something that not many people do. There is that conception, please get this to talk something how EO didn't. So back to funders. Back to the funders, sorry. So video raised 55.7 billion pesos from its third offering, peso ASEAN Sustainability Bond, just in last month. So based on BDO's sustainable finance framework, it will be used to finance renewable energy, green buildings, clean transport, among others. So what kind of signal does this tell us about low carbon investment in the country? And as a follow-up, can you give us an example of past projects that you've run that you think since 2 years ago, since they were funded, that have given a positive impact?
David.
Okay, so we've had 3 ASEAN sustainability bond issuances so far. Right? The first one in 2022 was at 57.2 billion. Our target was 5 billion. The second one was in January this year. Our target was again 5 billion pesos. And the final issuance was at 63.3 billion. We did a third one just recently this July, and it came up to 55.5 billion. So what does that tell us? There's a lot of money for sustainable finance. And where is this money coming from? It's coming from our retail customers. It's coming from institutional customers. It's coming from perhaps the retirement plans of some of the companies in this room. It's coming, for example, I know we were just talking about Thomson Reuters because many of us are ex-Thomson Reuters, including you, Anna. And I know that their retirement fund is invested in BDO. So, those kinds of sources, there's a lot of money available. However, what we always emphasize is that it's really the projects that are necessary. And this is not just any type of project. One, it has to be based on eligible categories, as I mentioned. And that's why our sustainable finance framework is very important. Because it comes from a framework that is vetted by a third party, which issues a second party, it issues a second party opinion, validating that our sustainable finance framework is aligned with all the international, global, regional bond issuance standards, so that it has high integrity, and that these are projects that were really researched in terms of metrics, in terms of impact. And my team and I, having just gone through the exercise of adding 29 categories, really can compare it into a major thesis defense, because we have had to defend each and every eligible category. So then, back to the sustainability bond issuances. So the beauty, or what makes it easier for BDO, is that, as I mentioned, we have already been doing sustainable finance for the past 14 years. So we have a very good portfolio of projects to assign our issuances. So all these billions of money, we can allocate it as use of proceeds for projects that are already in our portfolio. For some companies, it may be a matter of looking for the portfolio or looking for the projects that can be financed by the issuance, but we already have it in ours. And where do they go? So they go to energy efficiency projects, to renewable energy projects. And I would emphasize that energy efficiency is also an important, or equally as important as renewable energy, because this is easier to achieve. This is resulting in cost efficiencies. For example, in the real estate business, that's a very good way for a company to be able to manage their energy consumption and their emissions at the same time. Okay? So it goes to food security projects, it goes into water and wastewater management projects as well. So our first issuance, currently in our impact report for that one, it went to 28 projects in our portfolio. 10 of them are green projects, 18 of them are social projects. Yes, so food security, livelihood generation. While I cannot identify which clients it went to, but those are the general categories which were used for the allocation. And with the two other issuances, we do have a lot on our plate to be able to finance all of these projects that drive greener environment, provides social protection, and social impact that's positive for communities and individuals.
It's up for grabs right now, sir.
It is, and I would encourage everyone, if you have projects, to come to us. We will be assessing it, of course. Not all projects will be automatically accepted. And even renewable projects, we do even greater due diligence for them. It doesn't mean that it's renewable, it's automatically clean. It has to go through the same strict PNS risk assessment.
Citing use, Sparta. Okay, so more on sustainable solutions for technology that's traditionally powered by fossil fuels. So, First Gen has made announcements that it was looking at the opportunity to convert its gas-fired power plants into hydrogen-equipped facilities as part of its decarbonization strategies. So, like I mentioned earlier, there's such a thing as transition credits or carbon credits that can be generated from emissions reduced when high-emitting assets like, for example, coal-fired power plants are retired and replaced with cleaner energy sources, which is being explored now by ASEN and by Rockefeller Foundation. Would First Gen explore a similar model for the exit of one of its LNG facilities?
Well, first of all, we only have one LNG facility and it just started operating. And so I think for the foreseeable future, the need for LNG will be quite high, given the fact that we have existing capacity that relies on the delivery of steady natural gas to the cluster. Unfortunately, Malampaya is running out, number one. We're the sole buyer of Malampaya gas today. It used to have two markets. We're the sole buyer of Malampaya gas today. But it's not unusual when we operate all of our power plants that the pressure from Malampaya drops simply because we cannot with this one. And so we really need to fix Malampaya to the Fortunately also, unfortunately also for Malampaya is not only one issue, but also quality issue, where you have more sulfur than the Malampaya Sea. So the advantage of LNG is that it's pure, and we can blend LNG with Malampaya in order to fill the needs of our power plants, such that they comply with the requirements and be able to produce electricity. Well, but having said that, further down the road, I would have to say that when there will come a time when these power plants and this technology will run its own course, and at that stage, certainly we will be the first one to say we will retire it. Remember, Rockwell was originally a power plant, and not Rockwell State, right? So there's always opportunities for us to reimagine some of the investments that the group was made, to the point where, again, Rockwell is a prime example. That's right, the power plant is called the power plant one, right? But that's in our case, with computers going by back, that's it. So maybe further down the road, who knows, that could also stick well some to it.
Thank you so much. Okay, before I move on with the next final questions, may I ask the room if there are any questions for our panel? It's so, Ms. Mirna, again?
can we see here that microphone?
Because they decide to not productions. You know.
A question about the next round of carbon auction being scheduled during UAE, because they would want like combination of oil plus LNG. But at this time we don't see where the green is when it comes to LNG. So how confident are you that it will work? And for those who are in the oil sector, is it something that will work? And for funders like banks, is it something that you are comfortable funding RE plus LNG combination in the supply agreements? And I just have a question for Mr. Rafino. Because in other markets, most of the data centers, there's convergence with variability of RE. They're the ones who are pushing for generative AI to make RE more efficient. Is it something that we're doing in that space already?
I think that's
Uh, you know, even without the auction program, we're moving to a phase where our contracts for gas are running out of contract with Baralco. And so, right now, if you want to buy gas-fired power sourcing, you couldn't until this year. And so, our approach moving ahead is, first of all, just to step back, we had what we call the EPIRA law, which was passed 23 years ago, of which part of the intention of EPIRA is to create choice for consumers. Today, the choice is only given to large consumers and not small consumers. So small consumers have no say. Okay? So, but having said that, what we'd like to be is to accelerate the open access, retail competition open access, and be able to give consumers the choice to buy power from a company like First Gen, who can provide electricity, a very steady source of electricity with them, with a combination, a pool of assets from all of our geothermal, all of our hydro, all of our wind, all of our solar, or increasing number of solar, together with gas, to give them essentially low carbon solutions for their requirements, and no pool at all. And so for us, I think that's an attractive, for me, that's an attractive offer if I was given a choice as a consumer. Except that, can you imagine, 23 years, that's not even the law is there, it's clear. But retail competition open access, unfortunately for us here, most of us who pay our bills every month, we're just at the mercy of the incumbent distribution utility to make that choice for us. And for us, we think that choice is important. Yes.
In terms of financing, so let's all just remember that we have a different context, right, in the Philippines as a developing country as compared to the more developed countries in Europe or in North America, for example. And then BDO as a bank currently is the largest bank in the country. And we're also the largest financer of renewable energy projects with 898 billion today. Now, we also have nat gas in our portfolio. And that is because that is really considered as a transition fuel. But we are very conscious of that transition label. And similar to our approach to coal, we are also looking at easing our exposure to that gas. But for now, realistically, it's something that the country has to depend on as an alternative, as a transition fuel. So it's all part of our strategy where we acknowledge that there has to be trade-offs. There have to be trade-offs. It's a balancing act. Every decision that you make is balancing your commitment to sustainability and to a low-carbon economy that's environmentally responsible and socially inclusive, while at the same time, here are the actual needs and power energy needs of the country. So it's always a balancing act for us. But having said that, we do have a clear statement in terms of our transition financing. We have been increasing our renewable energy financing over the past 14 years. And so we are looking at the right direction, but perhaps not moving as fast as other countries are. and at the same time also conscious that we need to support government's development plan in the process.
On the AI question, so AI is going to really transform the data center industry. Most of the older data centers you see today will not be capable of handling the AI compute demand. So what's going to happen is data centers of the future are going to be even more, on magnitudes more energy intensive than the data centers today. And that's going to be a reality. So in an ideal world, if you ask us as a data center developer, we would love to build a data center right next to a geothermal power plant, have a direct connection, and limit transmission loss and have all of this load carried by that power plant. Very, very difficult, right? Very difficult. If I wanted to put, let's say, our data center beside the geothermal power plant, then you have to say, okay, does this place also have very good resilience? Does it have resilience from earthquake or storms? Is there connectivity? It might be a great place to produce power, but none of the telco connectivity exists in that area. So lining up everything to be able to do that would be extremely difficult, but it's a dream, right? Actually, the best scenario for me would be if the government would say, we're going to designate a special economic zone somewhere. We're going to incentivize renewable energy producers to locate there. We're going to incentivize data center operators to locate there, all within this area. Even the telcos, we're going to incentivize the telcos to put their fiber in there. Then you create this is happening abroad, a data center district almost. That would be ideal, where your power is all there, your resilience is all there, your concentration is all there. But I think that's, to be honest, a pipe dream for us, because I think it would be very difficult for the government to be able to. So we were the first data center to get DOI incentives. You can't believe how long and difficult that process was. It was, the government was very, very eager to do it, but they didn't even understand what a data center was, how the business operates. It took us so many meetings of trying to just get the government. This is already DOI. Visually, we're not talking about some low-level regulator. This BOI, it was so difficult the process to just get them to understand how the data center works. They were still, so you're not really generating that much employment. Of course not. Data centers employ actually realistically very little people, but the economic benefit we bring of improving the technology infrastructure, the telecommunication infrastructure, is very, very strong. So there's unfortunately a long learning curve and a lot of challenges ahead of us. So in the meantime, the best solution for all of us is to look for partners who can provide us renewable energy for our data centers. And as the supply improves, I think we'll have much more options for that to the future.
I can feel the pain and your passion about this, Raymond. So there really are these regulatory issues that are not really brought to the fore. Okay, we have one more question. Possible for the time that we have. If there's anybody else who would like to move forward, come forward.
What? Yeah. Yes.
Sir, yes, sir, please.
Okay. That's it.
Thank you very much. Lucas Tunikaitis, UL Solutions, ESG Advisor Business. I have a question related to transition finance. We talked about how good we see of growth in sustainable bonds, green bonds. What role do you see private credit playing in here in supporting the whole financial ecosystem in driving that transition finance and allowing smaller organizations, of course, have access to that capital to finance, of course, their sustainable development? Thank you.
Thank you. So, the mandate for banks really is to transform the banking business and make sustainable finance the business as usual. So what does that mean? For us, we simply express this as, rather than just having credit risk and credit analysis as the basis for transactions, you have to overlay an environmental and social risk and opportunities criteria over it. And in the process of doing this in the bank, we are even considering prioritizing that first. Meaning, we look at ENS risk first, and if it fails or if there really is very, very high TNS risk, then we don't go into the credit risk assessment at all. But which is not to say that just because a project would have higher risk, that doesn't mean that the bank will not finance it. What is really important is for the project proponent to identify what are the mitigation actions and adaptation actions that are clear and verifiable that they will take to address that high risk. And if that is clear and acceptable to the bank, then it can be financed. Now, you mentioned providing the opportunity for small businesses. So, BDO, as the largest bank, is also a conglomerate with 3 banks within it. So, most everyone would know BDO Unibank, right? But we also have BDO Network Bank, which targets micro, small, and medium enterprises. They're headquartered in Davao. They have branches in provinces and in remote areas. And then we also have BDO Private Bank, which caters to the ultra-high net worth or the super rich of the world. So between those 3 banks, we have everyone covered in terms of target market. And at the moment, BDO Network Bank is expanding exponentially. Our target is to build 100 branches this year. I believe we're currently at 70 as of first half of the year. And that is really to provide presence and at the same time have impact on these communities so we can extend green financing to small businesses. In terms of individuals, BDO Network Bank also provides salary loans to government employees, primarily teachers. And how do they use the loans that are afforded to them without collateral up to a certain amount? We found out that they were not using the loans to buy the latest cell phone, for example. They are using it to buy tricycles so that their husbands can have a small business flying tricycles in their area and improving the transportation facilities in their communities. They are using the loans to set up small sari-sari stores or convenience stores. They are using the loans to avail of higher education so that they are able to expand their skills and be able to provide their communities with better education and higher education opportunities. So that's how we are supporting in terms of social and environmental financing those areas that are not located in the cities or urban areas. And there are other products and services that I can spend all day talking about, helping the communities have access to finance. Because that's one of our major commitments, financial inclusion of the underbanked and the underserved. According to the BSP, as of last year, 44% of adults in the Philippines are still underbanked. That's down from 75% around 2021. So clearly, banks such as BDO Network Bank has made a lot of tangible changes, and with the presence, as I mentioned, has reached out to these communities. I hope that answers the question. But we're still learning as we go, and we're still trying to also expand how we are offering transition financing and green financing to smaller businesses and to communities.
Can I just add on the private credit question? So one of my other smaller companies were about to launch a private credit fund. And I think there's tremendous opportunity. The banks are doing a great job, but I think there's just so much need in the market that private credit, I think, will play a very good role. I think you're right. There is an opportunity to use the private credit opportunity as sort of stepping stones for a lot of these small to medium enterprises to kind of look at transitioning whether it's better ESG, more sustainability, or even transforming their businesses. There's a lot of opportunity there. In fact, for our private credit fund, it's one of the things we're looking at there to be the sort of ESG criteria as well, in the way that the credit fund thinks lends out its funds.
Thank you so much, Raymond. And being mindful of the time, I'm just going to wrap up our discussion. So earlier, if you recall, I was saying that in this discussion, what I would like to find out would be what each of these sectors are doing to be able to reach their low carbon emissions. So one of the key messages I was able to cite was, for example, for banks, is that banks do have the money. No question about it for green projects. The question is if those proposals meet your standards when it comes to sustainability. And with energy, you're doing everything you can to be able to seek sustainable solutions. But at the end of the day, you also have to look at what the needs of the country as a whole are. And for real estate, I learned that everybody learned that it's possible to be able to achieve green building certification, be sustainable without being too expensive. That's something that we learned. And however, there's a lack of capacity to offer that renewable energy. So with that, we want to thank you so much for educating us and enlightening us the intricacies of all this achieving low carbon emissions in our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you.